Last year on the Ohio Turnpike, almost half the deaths, almost half the people who died in vehicle accidents, guess what? Did not have their seatbelts on.
What?
2024 last year.
Oh.
In 2024, almost half of them, and many of them were commercial truck drivers, professional drivers.
I don't believe that.
The ones that you are hoping are setting the example for.
Hey there, everybody. I'm one of your hosts of today's episode of Toll Talk. I am Kalie Jakovics, and with me today I have
Alex Fakeri.
And we have a very exciting episode with a guest who has actually been on our show before.
A lot. I think it's kind of
A
like
frequent
a
guest.
stalker or something like that, you know. But
no, we love having Ferzan Ahmed on. He is the executive director of Ohio Turnpike. But we actually have him on. He is also the chair of the Global Road Safety for IBTTA. So we're excited to have you on today and talk about safety, the Be Safe Together campaign. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And it's great to be back with you.
Well, we're definitely, we're big fans. And, we're also, as fellow IBTTA members, we're obviously big fans of the global safety initiatives and campaign started by Bill Helkis, last
year.
A year ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
A year ago.
This is the second annual global toll road safety. So it's like a mouthful.
Yeah. But it's so important, and I don't think people realize that when you talk about road safety, they think the initial reaction is, am I putting my seatbelt on? Am I driving right? But realistically, it goes way beyond there and affects people all around us, from first responders to people on the highway and construction teams that are out there building the infrastructure that drives our economy, drives people to their families. It's so important. And Ferzan, I kind of want to start off by, there was a very unfortunate news just a couple of days ago. On May 29th, there was a road fatality in New York where a 54-year-old supervisor was struck down in a car accident. And right now, it's actually said about 3 out of 5 builders who work on road construction, receive a fatal experience just in this year alone. The volume, the frequency is there. And so it doesn't seem like the problem's disappearing, right? And it's something we need. It's real. It's now. It's not just some anecdotal story or something that we heard about. It's affecting people now. So I guess as the chair, of the global toll road safety, especially as the week comes up here, what do you think about what's needed in this industry to start making changes? And maybe you could box in your thoughts about, is there a utopia for us? Maybe you can comment on some of that.
Well, first of all, I'm really glad that you have decided to discuss this topic. And as members of IBTTA, it's on all of us. We have to work together as a team.
Yeah.
Private sector, public sector, doesn't matter what your business is, but we are part of moving people and goods. And the primary way for us to do that is to make sure that everything is done safely. The utopia, I've said this before. When we think about the ideal situation, when you think about the important things in life, let's just talk about life in general.
Yeah.
Go back to when we were kids. Go back to the things that we were taught that have guided us into adulthood and will guide us through the rest of our lives. What is it that we were told as kids when it came to important things? Always be good.
Mm-hmm.
Never be evil. Always be truthful. Never lie. Always be kind. Never be unkind. Right. They use the words always and never. Alex and Kalie, we're human beings. I'm going to tell you right now that always and never has not applied to me as a human being. We do make mistakes in life.
Yeah, well said.
But having said that, do you think I told my kid sometimes or most of the times? No, I also said always.
Right.
So the utopia for us, I don't know if I'd call it utopia. I'd call it the ideal situation. I'd call it where we want to be, where we all always want to focus is zero.
Yeah.
And statisticians will tell you that's not possible. Is it possible for a human being to go through life and never be unkind and never tell a lie? That's not the point. The point is, what is it that is really important in life? What is it that is really important for us in this business of infrastructure and mobility and transportation? It is safety.
Yeah.
So that vision zero, that target zero must always be on the forefront of our minds. And we should not focus on what the statistics are. We should focus on the fact that we have to work to get there. You know, you mentioned that supervisor. Supervisor had a family,
Yep.
a community, neighbors. How many people were affected by the death of one person? I think about that. I think about that every time. You know, I was, in my background, the first 15 years of my career, I was a construction manager for the Ohio Department of Transportation. So I worked in the field. I was the guy behind the barrels, behind the barrier walls. The stuff that I saw, you know, I was blessed. I went through my 15 years in the field without ever being injured, but I was hit on the road in my vehicle. And I saw so many crashes. I have visited so many colleagues in the hospital, seen young men laid up with broken bones, crying, wondering if they're going to be able to get back to work. I buried one of my colleagues when he was hit on the road. So and the person that died, it tore up the entire town. There was a very small town, and people knew each other. And at his funeral, you know, we pretty much shut down the town. The sheriff decided that this guy was so popular. The sheriff decided that he was just going to shut down the road because, you know, if there were like 6,000 people, it seemed like all of them showed up because they were all impacted. And that's what we got to keep in mind. It's when it comes to the safety that it's not about statistics. It's not about a crash. It's about the fact that somebody's life is affected and that everybody that's around that person is also affected.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you, you know, how did it come about of, you know, you becoming chair and getting involved in this, you know, initiatives? You know, obviously you're very passionate. I can tell just talking with you for the past couple minutes, you're very passionate. It has affected you and you understand the importance of roadway safety.
Yeah. So, you know, Bill, when Bill Helkis was our president, our immediate past president now, last year's annual meeting was in Cleveland. So, you know, he approached me one time. He says, look, I want global road safety to be the hallmark of my presidency. And since the meeting is going to be in Cleveland and you're the host, can you do this? I said, yeah, I'd be honored to do that. And again, given my background, the things that I talk about, the things that we talk about collectively are things that I have seen, that I have experienced, given that I was a field employee myself for so long. And, you know, before starting my career in engineering, I was a construction worker in New York. I built sidewalks and tuck pointing and stuff like that. So the things that I talk about are things that I have lived. So we did that. And then when last year ended, you know, Bill said, he says, you know what, I hope that this is not a one-time thing. Yeah. Maybe we should make this an annual event and that everybody embrace that. That's the beauty about IBTTA. Everybody understands how important this issue is. Just today, we learned that PIARC in Europe, that they want to participate actively. I said, wow, look at this. That is the whole, that is so enjoyable about being part of IBTTA, because it is a global family, and that our friends from across the pond, given that we have time differences, they understand how important this is, and they're willing to do that, willing to take that extra mile and participate. And that's what I like about it. This is truly a global effort to promote safety.
It is. And I love how passionate you are. And again, this is the second annual Global Road Safety Week, which is officially June 23rd to June 27th, which is also my birthday. So that's a sign. I'm glad that you're here. We get to talk about safety because we're, you know, even though we're involved in the industry, but even though not to the level of you know, we're marketing, we're helping with customer journey, but we're very passionate. I think Bill and yourself and others in IBTTA has really kind of got us involved and really interested in this campaign. So,
but I applaud you guys, and I would say that you are 100% part of this, because, you know, when it comes to the mission that our agencies and our industry have, part of that mission is to tell that story.
Yeah, true.
And that is something that you guys do very well. So you are absolutely an equal part of of us promoting safety together.
Well, I'd like to, yeah, and thank you very much for that. And
Yes, thank you.
we do take that charge and do our part. And I think that it's to have that universal message though is kind of the next important thing, and so that we take it and we share it. And I think we're talking about sharing has to go beyond just you know this conversation. It has to go to those other people that are out there doing the work, and people who aren't out there doing work but are enjoying the roads and being out there. And so that awareness is key. So I guess as far as when we talk about be safe together, right? We know that this was part of Bill's legacy here with that he kind of instilled there. But I'm just kind of curious, maybe you can take us through how we started there to now we're looking at these new themes such as be the hero, highway hero. What does highway hero mean, right? Can you maybe talk a little bit about those two things?
I would love to talk about that, and thanks for asking that question. So be safe together is our theme. We are trying to be safer.
Sure.
So when Tanya shares with IBTTA, she is the point person for IBTTA to work on this campaign. And when she and I were talking, and she said, should it be safe together again this year? Last year, that was our theme. Or should we have a new theme every year just to keep everybody engaged and refreshed? And we came up with several different ideas, which we presented to the board of directors. And the board of directors thought that be the highway hero is the theme that we would pick for this year. So what is a highway hero? Simply, a highway hero is a person who gets behind the wheel and says, today, I am going to be intentional and I am going to be deliberate about being safe for myself and for everybody around me.
That's great.
Highway hero, it could be something as simple as, I'll tell you what I do, is I have a little compartment in my console where I put my phone.
There you go.
So when I get into my vehicle, there's that tendency, here comes a phone, I want to answer that phone, or here comes a text, I want to see that. First of all, it's connected to my console, it's connected to my infotainment system, but just to be sure, what I would do is I will pick it up, turn it upside down, or put it into that compartment so that I don't need it.
There you
Or
go.
sometimes I'll put that do not disturb up there. Doing something as simple as that is being the highway hero, making sure that you obey the speed limit. When you're going through a construction zone, instead of being annoyed because you got to slow down, you say, oh, I better slow down because we've got people working here. We've got lane restrictions. We've got lanes. Perhaps something is going on when there's a construction zone. Your road is not normal. Something is going on, right?
Correct.
And then we will put up the signs to tell people what's going on. Obey those signs makes you a highway hero.
I think that, being intentional with something like that is, to use your word, I think it's a simple ask, right? And I think it's something that all of us can do for that little window. I mean, if you think about it, there's roughly 40,000 deaths per year just in the US alone, right? That are a result of traffic accidents, right? So yes. I think you're not just talking about construction, you're talking about the whole infrastructure we all drive upon. And as you said earlier, the lives, that it impacts. And so being intentional about that, I think is very important. And I love the fact that you actually are changing the theme yearly, I should say. And maybe it seems that that's a trend that keeps going, but I think the reason is because I think it also says subliminally, this is not a set it and forget it. You hear it once, right? This is an engagement of life that's going to continue to evolve and change.
Very well said. This is an engagement.
Yeah, I think that's what I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you're mentioning drivers and transportation professionals. We want them to be intentional. Is there anything else that you want them to take away from this campaign specifically for this year?
Let's look at holistically the whole network. It's got to be designed well. It's got to be planned well. It's got to be designed well. It's got to be constructed well, and it's got to be maintained well. So the condition of your infrastructure has to be good for it to be safe, right?
Right.
Whether it's guardrails, things as simple as lane lines. Those lane lines are lifesavers when it's raining or when it's dark. Yeah. Those raised pavement markers. So, having all of these things in place is something that agencies, we have the responsibility to do that and to maintain it well. Vehicles. Look at all the advancements that we're getting in vehicles. Every year, there's a new safety feature in a vehicle. But let me ask you this question. If the quality of infrastructure is good and it's getting better, If the vehicles are getting safer, why are the number of deaths increasing?
Yeah.
And the answer is very simple, because we are not paying attention. I'm going to turn it right back on the drivers. Look, there are always going to be situations where there could be a snow, there could be a weather event, there could be a blizzard. These things, these are natural events that we don't control.
Yeah.
But last year on the Ohio Turnpike, almost half the deaths, almost half the people who died in vehicle accidents, guess what? Did not have their seatbelts on.
What?
2024 last year.
Oh.
In 2024, almost half of them, and many of them were commercial truck drivers, professional drivers.
I don't believe that.
The ones that you are hoping are setting the example for you.
Right.
And our highway patrol lieutenant, when he and I would talk about these things, I'm like, what do we need to do? How do we do this? Said half these people could have been alive if they had there, because in each one of those cases, the person was ejected from the vehicle.
Oh,
How just the fact that
half the driver, half the accidents didn't have seatbelts on.
Almost half of them.
Wow.
Almost half the deaths were of people who were not belted and who were not restrained in their vehicles, including some professional drivers.
Yeah.
Wow.
So these are intentional behaviors. You can now add all the safety features in vehicles, and we have so much technology on the roads as well. But again, the number of deaths keeps increasing because that just comes down to individual behavior.
I was going to share a brief story on the seatbelt. So when I was young, probably like 6 years old,
You're still young.
When I was a child, thank you. When I was a child, my mom and I would always fight, like, put your seatbelt on, put your seatbelt on. I'd be like, no, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
She knows I'm in the back. She's driving her minivan. She's like, Kalie, I know your seatbelt's not on, put it on. And I'm like, giving her, mouth back and all this stuff. And she's like, just do it, Kalie. It's for your safety. It's for your life. If something happens, as soon as I click it in there, boom, we get into an accident. I'm not even joking. So ever since I was 6 years old and that happened, I was like, wow, my mom is right. Not just my mom, but every time I get into a car with my friends or whoever, I'm like, everyone's seatbelts. Like, it's so important because it is such a life-changing small feature.
That act probably saved you from being severely injured.
Oh, 100%.
Well, Ferzan, you were saying something there. We're talking about the technology cars. We're talking about Kalie's mentioned the distractions, right? That cause these things. And and you mentioned 50%, startling number, 50% of the people not wearing their seatbelts in that instance. It seems like we constantly walk this fine line when it comes to technology, right? Technology is the distraction, but now I think is there a movement, and it may be a little bit of a rhetorical question, but is there a movement to remove the human element from driving at this point, right? Because we are creatures of habits. We are flawed by nature. We're created. That's not going to be, that's not going to go away anytime soon. So, right. Should the shift be to remove the human element out of it? And I'm not just talking about, you can start talking about autonomy and, autonomous driving vehicles and all those other things. But look how far airbags have come, right? You have airbags at your knees. You have airbags over here, over there, at the sides, curtains everywhere around. I think the one thing is removing the human from the equation. Yeah. Right.
Funny you should say that, Alex. Last year, the ITS annual meeting was in Phoenix.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And that week, my family and I happened to be in Phoenix on a vacation. So everyone who was at the ITS meeting kept on posting videos of riding in the Waymo autonomous vehicle that was introduced in Phoenix last year.
Yeah.
As everybody's doing that. I'm in a Waymo. And finally, I said, you know what? I want to get in that darn thing myself. So I downloaded the app and I fetched one. I was just going for a morning walk, and I said on the way back to where we were staying, I took the Waymo. And as soon as I got in the car, the car gave me instructions, and I took off my seatbelt. I was sitting in the back. And the car stopped, and it said, "You have removed your seatbelt. Please fasten your seatbelt so the journey can continue."
Oh, wow, that is awesome.
I loved it. I taped it. I taped the whole journey. I said, that is so cool. I said, so the answer to your question, remove the human element.
Yeah.
Even now, sometimes people still think that it's only the people in the front of the vehicle who should be belted. And
oh no,
I think we got to continue to do that education, that everybody in the vehicle should have a seatbelt on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That is why they are there.
Well, you know, we're just, in fact, we're over in Portland, Kalie and I, and if you've driven in an Uber lately, Uber now has an audible prompt to passengers to say, put in your seatbelt, right? Because, you know, the cars don't always do it, right? They don't go off in the back. Like the alarm doesn't go off in the back, it goes in the front. And that's probably another conditioning thing right
Well,
there.
some cars do now, but not all of
Well,
them.
not
Yeah.
historically, right?
Yeah.
But now I thought it was very interesting that Uber now has that prompt, you know, an audible prompt coming from their onboard speaker, if you will, that tells the passenger to put your seatbelt on. And I mean, it doesn't keep dinging, but it goes off once and you hear it and you're like, oh, okay, I got to put my seatbelt on. But I'm sure that makes a difference. But yeah, I think that there is, I mean, I think at some point we have to just embrace the fact, like you and Waymo did, just to remove the human's ability to hurt themselves, right? You know, for lack of a better way to put it.
Yeah.
And but the seatbelt is one thing, right? But we're also talking about when you have vehicles that have AI in the vehicle to detect road hazards ahead. You know, I've even heard of some technology out in the roadside construction teams that can help, right? And so,
Sure.
but I think it's, you know, going back to the safety week is bringing these things to the foreground, making sure agencies are using this tech. And then more importantly, get drivers to, at least in the interim, 50 years that we have probably of human driving, get that, you know, get them up to speed with saving lives and they're saving themselves, you know.
Yeah.
There is another element to road safety, and that element is enforcement. I've had friends, I've had people tell me in a joke, you know, I was on the Turnpike and I've got this new car and I took it to 140 miles an hour. So why'd you do that? And if you did that, why are you telling me about it? I don't feel happy about it. The Ohio State Highway Patrol patrols our road and keeps everybody safe. And I went up on one of our enforcement planes not too long ago, and it took us about 10 to 15 minutes before we found several drivers in the 120-mile range.
Really?
Of course, we were up on the plane. We would signal the patrol car downstairs, catch them. I'm going to be straight up with you, Alex and Kalie. I don't have an interest in educating someone who's driving 120 miles an hour. I have an interest in enforcing. I have an interest in giving them a very high ticket.
Right.
And in some cases, confiscating the vehicle. And we have done that with several vehicles. They're risking their life and they're risking the lives of others. If you want to risk your own life, go find a race course. There are race courses out there. I used to have a sports car, and there are race courses here. You go rent it and you go have a good time, go have fun, enjoy yourselves. But don't do that on the highway because you're risking other people who are not interested in racing.
Right.
So when you've got someone who's driving 80, 90 miles an hour through a posted 60 mile an hour construction zone, how do you educate that person? You don't.
Right.
You have to enforce. You have to teach a lesson. I know it sounds crass, but hey,
no,
again, I'm talking about
you gotta be direct.
practical experience from having worked in the field for half my career. So that's a very important part of keeping people safe.
Yeah.
I know. I appreciate that. I think it's very important. We need to be candid with it at this point in the conversation, you know.
And I wanted to hear too, so for the campaign, I guess, you know, there's some alarming statistics, you know, that we've discussed. I mean, how is the campaign addressing some of those and educating and just, you know, supporting the initiative?
See, when it comes to the campaign, there are multi facets to that. There's of course the information sharing, but there's also the team building aspect of it. You know, be safe together. We are doing this together. So we discuss. You know, we do talk about statistics. They're important, but we don't just focus on the statistics. We focus on good habits. What is it that we want to promote? What is the outcome that we want? So the outcome that we want, obviously, is target zero. But what is it? What do we need to? What is the low-hanging fruit? What are the steps? Get off your phone.
Yeah.
Fasten your seatbelt. Slow down. Don't drive fast in inclement weather. Even if you have a brand new car with brand new tires, the road does not discriminate. The road does not care. If your tires cost $200 or $2,000, you're going off the road when it's slippery. Right. So, you know, these are the kind of things that we are trying to promote and teach people. It's about habits. It's about personal responsibility. And that's what this year's theme is: be the highway hero. Every person behind the wheel can be a highway hero.
Be intentional, for sure.
Be intentional. Be deliberate. Be intentional.
Yes. And I think that every time I get in the car now. I'm curious to know too, are there certain areas or states, locations, whatever have you, that are more vulnerable than others,
Good
or
question.
that you see that maybe need more education?
That's a great question. You know, I personally think that when you when you get a state where you have a lot of inclement weather, where you have days and weeks and times of the year when you might get sleet or frozen rain, that is an added element. And you know it comes quickly. And the old saying is that every year we find these people who've been driving for decades acting like they're first time drivers. It's that first snow, it's that first event, sleet event, the
Right.
first frozen rain event. So we have to expect that, and I think that's where the educational event comes, the educational aspect comes in, just to remind people that hey, it might be October, we're not expecting this till November, but don't forget sometimes in October this does happen. So yeah, in those states, in the states where you have these types of inclement weather happening, there are some extra steps we can take. And then you've got, not necessarily states, but you've got cities. You've got the extremely crowded cities with a lot of traffic.
Sure.
One advantage of being very crowded is that you don't have high-speed crashes. Unfortunately, when you have a crowded situation, the pedestrian related crashes increase. So you have to look at every situation based on what's going on and then talk about that. The Ohio Turnpike is a rural highway. We don't have pedestrians, so there's no point in talking about pedestrian safety here. But there are some turnpikes and some roads that are in the middle of the city that are commuter roads. They do have pedestrian traffic. They have bike traffic. They are multimodal, and that happens. Then we need to address those individual situations and make sure people are aware.
I do want to give you a quick plug too. So I love Ohio Turnpike. I always take it to go visit my family, and going from Maryland to Indiana, and the roads are great, and the Oasis, everything. It's an enjoyable drive.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll tell the team.
Yeah. Yeah.
But just a quick question for you. So we talked a little bit about, I want to transition into tech and innovation, but before that, the precursor to that is, to recap, there is a certain level of responsibility and behavioral change that we would love to see, right? And I think we all kind of surmise so far that it's a difficult thing, right? And they can take action by being intentional, right? To be a hero, a highway hero, which would be an immediate thing by, put your phone in your console, focus on what you need to do. That would be the main goal. But how does technology really, like you mentioned Waymo, but how does that actually apply to the drivers, like in the car? Like, what can we do for those people who have their additional car? Are there any other technologies or anything out there that's helping us make the road safer right now with these existing vehicles?
So we have many members in IBTTA who are working on this even as we speak. There are plenty of technologies out there. They're designed to give operators more information about what's going on. So I mentioned, Kalie, when you asked me the question about certain states, I talked about inclement weather and things like that. Well, we've got technologies out there that can actually, based on previous data, use predictive analysis to tell us what might be expected in a certain part of the road, based on the weather patterns and the history on that part of the road, based on that part of the city or the state. For us, we have Lake Erie, and we get the lake effect snow. There's a 20-mile segment of the road where we are going to get it no matter what, even if the rest of the road is fine. So we can use that kind of technology to give us the knowledge on the operator side. And what we can do with that knowledge is just be more ready, be more prepared. And the same knowledge can be transferred to vehicles that are set up with that kind of infotainment system. Not all vehicles are there. One thing we all have to keep in mind when it comes to technology, the average vehicle on an American road is there for 17 years.
Really?
Before it goes to the junkyard, yes.
Wow, didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's
didn't know that
interesting.
either.
Okay.
Cars are in good conditions, and if your car is good, I
Well,
once
you
had
also
a car.
resell the car too, right? You upgrade, and that gets
Exactly
recycled.
the point. Exactly. You sell the car, somebody else will keep it. And you know what? That person might sell the car too. We have two cars, my wife and I. My car is a 2022. My wife's car is a 2015. It's in very good condition, and it's a good car with all the bells and whistles that were existing in 2015. She does not wish to get a different car because she likes it. So if we have that for a couple, 2 or 3 more years, and we sell it because it's in good shape, somebody else is going to drive it for a few more years. So we have to keep that in mind. So even when we get into a situation, Alex, with your example, you take the human element out of it. Right. Let us say in 5 years, we are at a point where every manufacturer has a system where the car will only operate if everybody is properly belted. And the car will signal you if you're driving in an erratic manner. Let's say that's every car will have that technology. It's going to be another 17 years before it's 100% across the board. And it could be another 7 to 8 years before you have majority of the cars.
It's even longer than that, though. You know what, to me, I'm wondering is missing from that equation. 17 years, that's probably also that the curve on that evaluation is based upon cars that are in accidents. So if you have more cars that, you know, are lasting longer and less accidents, that's not going to be 20 years, 22 years, potentially.
It very well could be because, you know, that car, you know, somebody, unless the car is in really bad shape, that somebody's going to junk it. Well, if you sell it to a dealer, if you have an older car which you sell to a dealer, they might junk it, or they might sell it for parts, or they might auction it. When they auction it, you know, look, everybody's in the market for something. There's a market. If the car's in good shape and if it's affordable, somebody who needs an affordable car will buy that car and try to maintain it as long as they can.
So I'm going to throw out oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm going to throw out.
We have to be cognizant of that, you know, just because we have new technology in cars that are maybe 5 years old, we got 15-year-old cars on the road too that may not have that technology. So we have to be cognizant of that.
Well, I want to throw something up there that, you know, we talked to, you know, Bill, like they mentioned last year, or a few episodes back, you know, they have these black boxes they're looking to put into the vehicles in Europe to, you know, determine, you know, what was the result of the accident, right? Why don't the manufacturers or the state enforce, you know, a technology, an adapter, a plug-in to underneath your consoles that detect whether the seatbelts are not, and then disables the ignition, right? Or the ability to shift gears. I mean, so I think that, you know, with innovation and technology, and we'll probably be stopped from a legislative perspective. It probably won't make it out there. But I mean, sometimes even a gesture like that, even if it gets stopped, starts an initiative that may take more years to get going, right? But like, Alex, I don't know, there needs to be something.
Alex, as you know, we Americans are free. We Americans don't like Big Brother to be watching us, telling us what to do.
Yeah.
It's just a fact. And in Ohio, we are very conservative about things like that. Our next door neighbors in Pennsylvania have automatic work zone enforcement through trailers. That is not going to fly here. That is not going to work out here. It's in Ohio, the law is that the officer must be there to witness it. In DC and in other places, you have red light cameras for people who skip the red light. You're not going to put that in Ohio, not anytime soon. So these are real challenges that we have in different states. And, you know, here's the thing. I respect that. I respect individuality. I respect your personal choice to do what you wish to do. But that's why you got to be the highway hero. So just because in my state, they're not going to give me a ticket based on a camera that might capture me skipping the red light, doesn't mean I should do it. Just because there are no cars over there, doesn't mean I should do it. If I truly wish to be a highway hero, then I'm going to stop and make that turn properly, regardless of whether there are other cars there or not. And that's the message we are trying to give about personal choices and responsibility.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Absolutely.
And we have just a couple minutes left, so we have a couple more questions. I guess, you know, how can an organization become involved with the campaign? Or if there's toll agencies, operators, even drivers, is there a way that we can help spread the word?
Absolutely. So I'll answer the first part of your question first on the organizational side. When we're going to launch this campaign, it will be a social media campaign. Share it, become part of it. In fact, you guys can probably do it better than the rest of us. That's how you guys can participate, and everybody else can participate in that. As far as the driver part, you know, we did that. I'll share a video once we have that video ready. We do this thing called a customer appreciation event. So when summer starts in our service plazas, Ohio Turnpike and the Ohio State Highway Patrol will bring in vendors and give out hot dogs and things like that. And and let's interact with the customers and then talk to them about safety, because summer, more people are going to be on the road. There could be more crashes. So we talk about that. And we had them talk about it, said that, would you like to be a highway hero? Would you like to know what a highway hero is? And we had families stop and hold that banner that said, be safe together, and said, I'm going to be a highway hero. I'm going to be safe. That's just, get people involved. So when we are talking, when we are, if we are in front of people, let them not just observe. They're not watching TV. Bring them in. Hey, I want you to participate. I want you to say the same thing. I want you to be with me because we are all on the road together.
Well, and I think the other thing is they need to know this is relatable. This is for them, to them, and that it's it's an initiative that it involves them, and they have to. I think that's great. So that's a great recommendation, and I hope definitely we'll get the agencies participating. Toll Talk will definitely be a supporter of this initiative for sure.
And Mojo.
Appreciate that.
Mojo to that extension.
Yeah, and I just kind of want to finish with, I guess, what events or key initiatives that you guys have coming up for the Global Road Safety Week.
So the Global Road Safety Week is the week of June 23rd. And the kickoff is going to be a live webinar with transportation leaders.
Very good.
And I'm encouraging these are DOT directors, secretaries, as well as leaders in the industry across the board. And it's going to be wonderful. And we also have taped interviews with people from not just across the United States, but across the globe, that we will also be featuring during that week.
Okay.
And last year we shared best practices. Best practices, all the information, just key information. So the week of the 23rd, it's going to be the last week of June. So that's I guess one of the key takeaways. That everybody in IBTTA should now be aware, since this is the last week of June.
Yeah.
We're going to use that. We're going to make that our week to talk about global road safety, and we're going to do it across the globe, and we're going to do it together, the private sector and the public sector, and every country.
Well, I think it's well planned too. End of the year, so people are getting not end of year, but people are getting out there that time of year. They're on the roads a lot more. I think it's great.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and we'll be sure to share that link and share with our followers. And for those of you that are listening, please make sure that you go to IBTTA's website and make sure that you either register for that event or share on social so we can help spread the word to be safe, be intentional,
be a highway hero.
Yeah, and a highway hero.
Highway hero.
Ferzan,
so three of us, can we take a pledge that we are going to be highway heroes?
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
I'm getting pins made or something.
That's a good idea. Yeah,
Pins,
that's a good idea.
bumper stickers.
I'll take that pledge. I'll definitely, all sincerity, take that pledge with you. Alex Fakeri, Toll Talk today, going to be a highway hero. Be more intentional.
Same here.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, Ferzan, thank you so much for joining with us. Great colleague, great friend, great leader. And, so happy to have you on here with such an important topic. And we hope you have enjoyed this episode of Toll Talk and our guest Ferzan. And I'm Alex Fakeri.
And I'm Kalie Jakovics, and we hope to see you next time.
Thanks for watching.